Hi, everybody. I'm Rick Fulbaum, and welcome to FoxNews.com Live. So glad you're with us on a Tuesday afternoon. And the topic of this show is all about finding solutions to problems that we face. The show is called Solution America, and we examine subjects big and small, problems that are really very consequential and others that are maybe not so consequential, but they do have an important bearing on the lives of everybody out there. So we introduce you not only to the problem, but to the folks who are out there trying to work on solutions to come up with ways to solve those problems. And today we've got three important things to talk to you about. We're going to talk about extending the life of your home computer. We're going to talk about young voters and ways that they can have a louder voice this election season. We're also going to talk about back to school and a safe way and maybe stylish way for young people to carry their books to and from their classrooms. So we'll talk about those three things, and we're glad you're with us. I'm also logged into the chat, so you can feel free to join us and chime in. If you've got any questions or comments, we want to hear them, and I'll try to work as many of them into the show as I possibly can. You can find me on Twitter at Rick Fulbaum, and without further ado, let's say hi to Jason Johnson, who's president of a company called iObit, and you can find them online at iobit.com. Jason, nice to talk to you. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Rick, for having me on today.
Okay, so your company aims to find a solution to the problem. For people out there who are worried or upset that their computer is extremely low, the solution, we've got some tips courtesy of Jason. So, all right, first of all, why do computers sort of slow down?
It's a very good question. So over time, we install more and more software. We download music and movies and documents, and all that activity bogs down the computer. It makes it slower and perform less efficiently for us.
And so people would typically get a message that would come up on their computer if they don't notice that the computer's not functioning as well. I remember when I had a PC that I would get a little note that would tell me, a little pop-up note that would tell me that my memory was running low, and that was one of the things I could do by sort of helping out, maybe deleting files that I didn't necessarily need that might speed up the computer. Is that right?
That's right. So deleting unnecessary files is one of multiple things you can do to try to extend the life of your PC and maybe put off purchasing another PC, which is what a lot of people do. It gets slow and they just go buy a brand new one. But in these economic times, of course, that's not the easy thing for many of us to do.
Let's go through a couple of the tips that you're providing for folks today. The first one is to keep your hardware in a clean and cool environment. Why is that so important?
Yeah, so the mechanisms inside the computer, the processor, the memory, the hard drive, these are very heat-sensitive components, and we often find PCs, underneath desks and covered by books, surrounded by pillows, and the more heat that is constraining those components, the less likely they will perform well, and the closer they are to their failure time. These things will fail over time if they are confined by heat.
The next tip that you give is to clean out, we talked a little bit about this, clean out old registry files, cookies, temporary files. Where do you find this stuff on your PC, Jason?
Yeah, so as you surf the internet, you're downloading pictures that are stored in your temporary internet files cache. You're downloading cookies. You're downloading content that sits there on your hard drive, and you can from time to time manually go and remove that content yourself, or you can use software that'll do that for you automatically and perpetually.
What do you think about external hard drives? For folks, these days everybody's got some kind of an MP3 player. Everyone's taking digital photos that take up a lot of storage space. Do you recommend to people maybe go get an external drive where you can store all that stuff and not have it sort of bog down the hard drive on your computer?
Well, it's a very good question. It's interesting because many of the computers people have purchased in the past few years have very large hard drives. They have very, very good capacity. And what turns out, if we just clean them up and just maintain them, we actually can get a lot more files on there. But of course, if you're shooting really large pictures and have very large music or movie collections, an external hard drive is a very convenient and fairly inexpensive way to expand your capacity.
Defragment your hard drive is another one of your tips. What does that mean?
Yeah, so a hard drive is just like any other thing you organize. Maybe your desk at work, and as you get more and more documents, and they clutter your desk at work, and you shove things in drawers, it becomes more and more difficult to find things if they're not organized, carefully. And so there's this thing called defragmentation of your hard drive that basically goes through your hard drive and reorganizes everything in a nice, efficient way so that when you go to access that program or that document, your computer can find it very quickly and open it very quickly for you. But we need to do that on a regular basis, again, either manually or using software to do it for you.
Speaking of software, there is also software that's sort of security, spyware. A lot of people will subscribe to these things. McAfee, of course, is one of them. There are a lot of other ones on the market that will scan your computer and look for any malware or viruses that are out there. And that's got to be an important thing too, right?
Absolutely. In fact, McAfee did a study earlier this year that said 1 in 5 PCs do not have any kind of malware software protection. That is those 20% of PCs are completely unprotected from any kinds of outside threats that may enter the computer, viruses, spyware, things that can cause quite a lot of damage.
It used to be that Apple computers were the favorite of some because it was thought that they were sort of impenetrable, that these malwares and viruses couldn't get their way onto an Apple computer. Is that still the case?
That is actually not the case anymore. I've seen recent studies which shown that the Mac OS is becoming more and more prone to these types of threats like any other PC, and so the software titles to protect Macs are coming out on a weekly basis almost.
A lot of times a computer company will send out some kind of a patch that you can download, a security patch or something that they've updated, and you have to click on it and make sure that your hardware is up to date. You recommend people do that, and what tips can you give to folks? Because I understand that there are some viruses out there that try to mimic the look of these patch updates so that people think that they're actually clicking on something from their computer maker when in fact they're actually allowing a virus onto their computer.
That's right. That's exactly correct. These nefarious characters out there with certain websites will try to get you to click on things that if you click on it, it will in fact cause harm. It either may harm your computer or it may take some of your personal information. So again, having software that is regularly being updated to watch out for these types of websites, and that is in fact why, as you mentioned earlier, that's this software, including our software, Advanced System Care, is needing to be constantly updated, and there's subscriptions. So once upon a time, we used to buy a piece of software, and you could use it for as long as you wanted. But it's becoming more and more common that software has this annual subscription model, so that it stays most up to date and most effective at, in this case, protecting you.
One more question, Jason, and we would encourage people to check out iobit.com to learn more about your company. Your last tip is to let your hardware rest. What do you mean?
Yeah, so just like any other machine we have, maybe our cars, it's a machine, and it needs time to rest. Just like we wouldn't leave our car running for 24 hours a day, leaving your PC running for 24 hours a day is not in the best interests of those components. So it is good to shut down your computer from time to time and give it a chance to cool down and rest in between usage.
Jason Johnson is the president of iObit. You can find them online, iobit.com. On Twitter, their handle is @iobitsoft. Good to talk to you, Jason. Thanks so much for the helpful information.
My pleasure. Thank you, Rick.
And we got a comment here from someone in the chat room. Can you read this? If you want to extend the life of your PC, then you need to back up the entire hard drive to include the operating system on a bootable external hard drive. So that's a tip from